Are you terrified of the unknown? What happened to the high school students? Please like and subscribe. This helps our channel to really grow. Please add comments to tell us what you liked/didn't like. Thanks for the view. The air hung heavy with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel thick and labored. It was the kind of night where the atmosphere itself seemed to be alive, pulsating with an almost tangible energy. The scent of magnolias was thick in the air, their sweet fragrance mingling with the earthy smell of the bayou. Graduation gowns clung to their young wearers, the fabric sticking to their skin as they moved about, laughing and chatting. It was a night for celebration in the small town of Terrebonne Parish. The streets were alive with the sounds of joy and excitement, as families and friends gathered to mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. A night for joyous goodbyes and bright futures. The graduates, full of hope and dreams, embraced each other, their laughter echoing through the warm night air. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the bayou, a sense of foreboding began to creep in. The once vibrant colors of the sunset faded into the deep blues and purples of twilight, and the mood began to shift. The carefree atmosphere turned ominous, as if the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The laughter and chatter grew quieter, replaced by uneasy glances and nervous smiles. A group of high school graduates, giddy with freedom and excitement, piled into their cars, their headlights cutting through the growing darkness. They were headed to Clouds Crossing, a secluded campsite nestled deep in the heart of the Louisiana Bayou. Their destination was a place known for its beauty and tranquility, a perfect spot for a night of celebration away from the prying eyes of adults. But as they drove deeper into the woods, the darkness seemed to close in around them, the trees casting eerie shadows on the road. Clouds Crossing was a place of legend, whispered about in hushed tones by the older generation. It was said to be haunted, a place where the spirits of the bayou roamed free. But to the graduates, it was just a place to have fun, to make memories that would last a lifetime. They were never seen again. The next morning, a chilling silence hung over the town. The once bustling streets were now eerily quiet, the joy and excitement of the previous night replaced by a sense of dread. The graduates' families, their faces etched with worry, gathered in the town square. Mothers clutched their children, fathers paced nervously, and friends huddled together, whispering in hushed tones. Whispers of the missing teenagers spread like wildfire, each retelling adding another layer of fear. The once tight-knit community was now gripped by a collective anxiety, the unknown gnawing at their hearts. The sheriff, a weary man with eyes that had seen too much, organized a search party. He had lived in Terrebonne Parish his whole life and knew the bayou like the back of his hand, but even he felt a chill run down his spine as he prepared to venture into the woods. Hope, fragile and fading, clung to the humid air as they set off towards Clouds Crossing. The search party, armed with flashlights and a determination born of desperation, disappeared into the woods, their figures swallowed by the darkness. The town waited with bated breath, the hours stretching into an eternity. The bayou, usually so full of life, seemed to hold its secrets close, the silence broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird. As the search party delved deeper into the woods, the sense of unease grew, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. What they would find, if anything, remained a mystery, but one thing was certain. The night of celebration had turned into a night of terror, and the small town of Terrebonne Parish would never be the same again. The journey to Clouds Crossing was a somber one. The search party, a mix of grim-faced locals and anxious parents, navigated the winding waterways. The bayou, usually teeming with life, seemed strangely still. The Spanish moss hanging from the cypress trees swayed gently in the breeze like mournful mourners. As they approached the campsite, a collective gasp rippled through the group. What they found sent shivers down their spines. The once joyful campsite was now a scene of chaos and terror. Tents were ripped apart, belongings scattered like confetti. A thick, metallic scent hung in the air, clinging to the back of their throats. The ground was stained crimson, the blood stark against the vibrant green of the surrounding vegetation. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare, a gruesome tableau that spoke of unimaginable violence. Fear, raw and primal, gripped the hearts of the search party. The sheriff, a man of action despite the dread that had settled in his gut, immediately began organizing the scene. He was a seasoned lawman, known for his calm demeanor and quick thinking, but today, something felt off. The air was thick with tension, and the usual sounds of the forest seemed muted, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Every fiber of his being screamed that something was terribly wrong. His instincts, honed over years of service, were on high alert. He scanned the area, taking in every detail, every clue that might explain the chaos before him. This was no ordinary animal attack. The tracks on the ground were unlike anything he had seen before, and the way the earth was disturbed suggested a struggle of unimaginable ferocity. He knelt down, examining the prints closely, trying to piece together the events that had unfolded here. The ferocity of the scene, the sheer savagery, pointed towards something far more sinister. Tents were shredded, belongings scattered, and the ground was stained with dark patches that told a story of violence and fear. The sheriff felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the magnitude of what they were dealing with. But just as the investigation was about to begin in earnest, fate dealt them a cruel blow. A sudden commotion broke the tense silence, drawing everyone's attention away from the scene. Deputy Boudreau, a young man new to the force, let out a yelp of pain. He had been standing a little too close to the underbrush, and now he was paying the price. He stumbled back, clutching at his ankle, his face contorted in agony. The sheriff rushed to his side, his heart pounding as he saw the telltale signs of a snake bite. A water moccasin, its scales glinting menacingly in the sunlight, slithered away into the undergrowth. The snake had been hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The venomous snake had struck with lightning speed, its bite a potent reminder of the dangers lurking in the bayou. The sheriff knew that time was of the essence. A bite from a water moccasin could be deadly if not treated quickly. The sheriff, torn between the urgent need to investigate the scene and the welfare of his deputy, made a difficult call. He had to prioritize Boudreau's safety, even if it meant delaying the investigation. Boudreau needed immediate medical attention. The sheriff barked orders, instructing his team to get the young deputy to the nearest hospital as quickly as possible. He watched as they carefully lifted Boudreau, his mind racing with the implications of the delay. The investigation would have to wait. As the sheriff stood alone in the now eerily quiet forest, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The sinister force behind the attack was still out there, and every second they lost brought them closer to another tragedy. Section 4. Whispers on the Wind. The Rougarou. Word of the graduate's disappearance spread through the small town like a virus, infecting every conversation, every interaction. Fear mingled with speculation. Theories, some outlandish, some all too plausible, were exchanged in hushed tones. But one name, whispered in fear, sent chills down the spines of even the most skeptical: the Rougarou. Old Man Thibodeau, a weathered fisherman who knew the bayou like the back of his hand, sat on the porch of his ramshackle cabin, sipping his chicory coffee. His eyes, clouded with age but sharp as a hawk's, watched the worried townsfolk pass by. They sought answers, solace, something, anything to cling to in the face of this unspeakable horror. Rougarou, he muttered, the words catching on the humid air. It's the Rougarou. Section 5. Old Man Thibodeau and the Spirits. Old Man Thibodeau, a fixture in the town for as long as anyone could remember, was a man of two reputations. He was a figure shrouded in mystery and intrigue, a living legend whose stories were as thick as the fog that blanketed the bayou. His presence was as constant as the cicada's song, and his tales were as old as the cypress trees that towered over the swamp. To some, he was a harmless eccentric, a teller of tall tales fueled by too much moonshine. His stories, often dismissed as the ramblings of an old man, were filled with fantastical creatures and eerie happenings. Yet there was something about the way he told them, a glint in his eye, a certain conviction in his voice, that made you wonder if there was more truth to them than met the eye. To others, he was a seer, a man attuned to the whispers of the bayou, a conduit to the spirits that roamed its murky depths. They believed that Old Man Thibodeau had a gift, a rare ability to see beyond the veil of the ordinary world and into the realm of the supernatural. His pronouncements, often dismissed as drunken ramblings, carried a weight, an eerie prescience that was hard to ignore. His pronouncements, often dismissed as drunken ramblings, carried a weight, an eerie prescience that was hard to ignore. He spoke of things that no one else could see, of events that had not yet come to pass, and of creatures that lurked in the shadows of the bayou. His words were like a dark prophecy, a warning of the dangers that lay hidden in the swamp. He spoke of the Rougarou, a creature of Cajun folklore, a shapeshifter that haunted the darkest corners of the bayou. This creature, he said, was a being of immense power and insatiable hunger, a predator that preyed on those foolish enough to venture into its domain. The Rougarou was not just a story to scare children, it was a real and present danger, a force to be reckoned with, a shapeshifter that haunted the darkest corners of the bayou. A being of immense power and insatiable hunger, it preyed on those foolish enough to venture into its domain. The Rougarou was a creature of legend, but to Old Man Thibodeau, it was as real as the ground beneath his feet. He spoke of its eyes, glowing red in the darkness, and its voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers down the spine. A being of immense power and insatiable hunger, it preyed on those foolish enough to venture into its domain. He spoke of its eyes, glowing red in the darkness, and its voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers down the spine. The Rougarou was a creature of nightmares, a beast that could change its form at will, blending into the shadows and striking without warning. It preyed on those foolish enough to venture into its domain. He spoke of its eyes, glowing red in the darkness, and its voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers down the spine. The Rougarou was a creature of nightmares, a beast that could change its form at will, blending into the shadows and striking without warning. He spoke of its hunger, a hunger that could never be satiated, a hunger that drove it to commit unspeakable acts. He spoke of its eyes, glowing red in the darkness, and its voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers down the spine. The Rougarou was a creature of nightmares, a beast that could change its form at will, blending into the shadows and striking without warning. He spoke of its hunger, a hunger that could never be satiated, a hunger that drove it to commit unspeakable acts. The Rougarou was not just a story to Old Man Thibodeau, it was a reality, a constant presence in the bayou. The surprise code is Rougarou 1986, and its voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers down the spine. He spoke of its hunger, a hunger that could never be satiated, a hunger that drove it to commit unspeakable acts. The Rougarou was not just a story to Old Man Thibodeau, it was a reality, a constant presence in the bayou. His tales were a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the unwary. He spoke of its hunger, a hunger that could never be satiated, a hunger that drove it to commit unspeakable acts. The Rougarou was not just a story to Old Man Thibodeau, it was a reality, a constant presence in the bayou. His tales were a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the unwary. The bayou was a place of beauty, but it was also a place of danger, a place where the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurred, a hunger that drove it to commit unspeakable acts. The Rougarou was not just a story to Old Man Thibodeau, it was a reality, a constant presence in the bayou. His tales were a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the unwary. The bayou was a place of beauty, but it was also a place of danger, a place where the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurred. Old Man Thibodeau's stories were a testament to this, a reminder that in the bayou the spirits were always watching.